Goblin launch detected.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. I'm also sponsored by Face to Face Games, Canada's premier Magic the Gathering store. Using the promo code MTGMudsta will get you 5% off site-wide, with eligible orders getting free shipping Canada-wide. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. In today's game, Marie has brought back fan favorite Lulu the Cultist, and she keeps Land Tax, Swamp, Path to Exile, Dreadhound, Shine Shadow Snarl, Night's Whisper, and a Soul Ring. Felix is rocking his Kamiz deck, which I think is the first deck he ever played on this channel, keeping Myriad Landscape, Creeping Tar Pit, Ledger Shredder, Change of Plans, Darkwater Catacombs, Drana, Liberator of Malakir, and a Wonder. I've got the Duke of Dumpsters all ready for everyone, having just added some new cards, and I keep War Room, Mindslaver, Anger, Sequestered Stash, Strip Mine, Soul Guide Lantern, and Phyrexia's Core. Max has put me to the test though, trying to figure out whether Boros is a better artifact commander with Osgir, keeping a Mountain, Plains, Faithless Looting, Wayfarer's Bauble, Boros Charm, Swiftfoot Boots, and Tragic Arrogance. Marie wins the die roll and starts us off. She draws and plays a Shine Shadow Snarl, revealing a Swamp from hand. With it coming in untapped, she casts a Soul Ring and passes. Felix just plays a tapped Myriad Landscape, passing after that. I've got a War Room for turn, and tap it for 1 colorless to cast Soul Guide Lantern. Max plays a Plains and casts a Wayfarer's Bauble. Marie draws and plays a Swamp. She plays out a Verge Rangers, passing to Felix after that. Felix draws and plays a Darkwater Catacombs. He's got enough mana for a Ledger Shredder, passing to me after that. I just draw and play a Sequestered Stash and pass to Max. Maxim draws and plays a Mountain. He then pays the 2 to crack the Wayfarer's Bauble, going to find a Mountain, and passes after that. Marie draws and plays a Plains. In her main phase, she brings out Lulu, and moving to combat, swings the Verge Rangers at Max, dealing 3. With nothing else, she passes. Felix draws and plays a Swamp. He pays the 2 to activate the Myriad Landscape, sacrificing it and going to find 2 Plains. He passes after that. I draw, play a Mountain, but with nothing else. Have to pass. Maxim has a Plains for turn, and then plays his commander, Osgir, and passes to Marie. Marie draws and plays a Vault of Champions. She then pays 2 for a Night's Whisper to draw 2 and lose 2. She follows that up with Land Tax, triggering Felix's Ledger Shredder, and he connives away a Wonder. Going to combat, she swings Lulu at Max and the Verge Rangers at me, and we both take our hits. After that, she passes turn. Felix plays a Reliquary Tower in his main phase, and then plays a Kamiz. Moving to combat, he swings the Ledger Shredder at Marie, and connives on attack, discarding a Creeping Tar Pit after drawing. Marie then takes the hit, and Felix passes after that. I draw and play Strip Mine. I pay 2 for a Liquid Metal Torque, and follow up with a Mox Opal, triggering the Ledger Shredder. I'd pass after Felix is done conniving. Maxim draws and plays an Archaeomancer's Map, grabbing 2 Plains as it enters. He then plays one of them as his land for turn, and then casts a Faithless Looting, drawing 2, and discarding a land and Sabine's Reclamation. Moving to combat, he swings Osgir at Marie for 4. Activates his commander, exiling the Wayfarer's Bauble in his graveyard to make 2 tokens of it, and he passes after that. Marie draws and plays a Reflecting Pool. She then plays Adeline as well as Cultist of Absolute, and goes to combat. She swings Lulu at Felix, and the Verge Rangers at me. This triggers Adeline, making 3 human tokens, with 1 apiece going at each of her opponents. Felix decides to block the one that's coming at him, while Max and I just take the full hits. Marie then moves to her end step, and Lulu triggers, untapping her team and putting a +1/+1 counter onto her tapped creatures and then untapping them. Felix draws and plays a Sunken Hollow. Going to combat, he swings Kamiz at Marie, making it unblockable and conniving. She responds by casting Path to Exile and targets the Ledger Shredder, but still takes the hit from Kamiz after that. He then follows up with the Dragon Lord Ojitai, and he then passes after that. During his end step, I activate War Room, losing 1 and drawing a card before moving to my turn. I draw for turn and play a Mountain. I then cast Anger and pass to Max. Maxim draws and plays Sunhome as his land for turn. He then plays an Arcane Signet and casts a Tragic Arrogance. He goes around the table and picks non-land permanents for each player to keep. Starting with Marie, he chooses a human token, land tax, and Soul Ring. For Felix, he keeps Kamiz and nothing else. For me, he chooses Anger and Mox Opal, and then finally for himself, picks Osgir and the Arcane Signet. The rest are then sacrificed, and he then moves to combat. He swings Osgir back at Marie, who chumps with a human token. With all that done, Maxim passes. Marie's land tax triggers on her upkeep, and she goes to grab 3 basics to put to hand before drawing. In her main phase, she then casts a Dreadhound and mills 3, hitting 1 creature, which has all of us losing 1 life. With nothing else, she passes turn. Felix draws and plays a Swiftfoot Boots, and then equips them onto his commander. He then plays Teferi's Ageless Insight and moves to combat. He swings Kamiz at me and puts the Unblockable and Connive trigger on his commander, drawing 2 from the Insight and then discarding an Aerial Extortionist to put a +1/+1 counter onto his commander. I then take the hit, and in his second main phase, he plays an island and passes. I draw and play a Phyrexia's Core. I then cast the Duke of Dumpsters to ready himself, and uptick the Walker, discarding a Mindslaver and Duplicant to draw 2 cards. After that, I pass turn. Maxim draws and goes straight to combat, swinging Osgir at Felix and dealing 4. In his second main phase, he then activates Osgir, exiling the Archaeomancer's map and getting 2 token copies of it, which lets him go and find 4 planes to put to hand. He then wraps things up with a Swiftfoot Boots, and once they resolve, equip them onto his commander. Marie draws and plays a command tower. She recasts Lulu and goes to combat, swinging the Dreadhound at Max and dealing 6. With combat done, Marie passes turn. Felix draws and plays Timna the Weaver. Going to combat, he swings Kamiz at Maxim and discards a non-land card to connive on his commander, and then hits Maxim for 4 commander damage. In his post-combat main phase, he plays Shizo Death's Storehouse, and then a Dimir Signet. He then passes, and during his end step, I cast Thrill of Possibilities, discarding a Wandering Archaic and drawing 2 cards. I draw for turn and play a Fabled Passage. I then uptick Daretti, discarding a Mycosynth Lattice and a Mountain, drawing 2 after that. I then move to resolve a Goblin Welder and pass after that. Maxim draws and plays a Plains. He then plays Saheeli's Directive, putting 11 to the X. And he flips into a Star Compass, Boros Signet, Great Furnace, Iger Wellspring, and Burnished Heart. With those disappointing flips, Maxim then draws from the Iger Wellspring, and once that's done, plays a Potion of Healing, drawing yet again. He then moves to combat, swinging Osgir at Marie, and after he connects, moves to a second main phase and activates his commander. He exiles the Rustvale Bridge and makes 2 token copies of it, and passes after that. Marie draws and plays a Shattered Sanctum as her land for turn. She then plays a Boss's Chauffeur and an Anointed Procession. Going to combat, she swings the Dreadhound at Max and Lulu at Felix, with Max jumping with his Burnished Heart. We all then take 1 from the Dreadhound as the creature dies, and Felix takes his damage as well from the hit, and Marie passes after that. Felix plays a Command Tower, and then plays Stolen Identity, copying the Ichor Wellspring, and draws 2 as it comes in, and then ciphers the spell into Kamiz. Going to combat, he swings Kamiz at me and Timna at Daretti, giving Kamiz unblockable and Timna double strike. Kamiz gets to connive as well, and he draws 2 and discards a negate to add another +1/+1 counter to his commander. I declare no blocks on Timna, and Daretti loses some loyalty, and I take some commander damage. This triggers the Stolen Identity, which lets Felix make a pretty copy of a Soul Ring. In his post-combat main phase, he then pays a life and draws 2 cards off Timna thanks to Teferi's Ageless Insight. He then passes after that. During his end step, I activate War Room, losing a life to draw a card, and we move to my turn. I draw and play Crucible of Worlds, playing the Fabled Passage from my graveyard and sacrificing it to find a mountain. I then uptick Daretti, discarding a Planar Bridge and a Wasteland, and draw 2. I follow up with a Reckless Fireweaver and pass to Maxim. Maxim's turn has him drawing and then flashing back Savine's Reclamation in his main phase, returning to field Oswald Fiddlebender and the Burnished Heart. He then tries to move the boots to Oswald, with Felix responding by casting an Utter End and targeting the Swiftfoot boots. Maxim responds by sacrificing them to Osgir to pump his commander by +2/+0. And with the removal fizzled, he then activates his commander to exile the boots and make 2 token copies of him. He then attempts to equip the boots once more into Oswald, and I respond this time using my Goblin Welder to sacrifice my Mox Opal and return the duplicant from my graveyard to the field. It enters, and I exile Oswald and deal 1 to everyone with the Fireweaver. With his Oswald plan foiled, Maxim then sacrifices the Burnished Heart to go and find 2 lands, and we all lose 1 to the Dreadhound trigger from Marie. He then equips a pair of boots onto Osgir and passes turn. Marie draws and plays a Death Greeter, and then replays Cultist to the Absolute. Going to combat, she swings Lulu at Daretti, and the Dreadhound at Max, and the Chauffeur at Felix. Daretti then dies, while Maxim and Felix take their hits. After that, she passes turn. Felix draws and plays a Plains. He then plays Madomai and moves the boots to it. Going to combat, he swings Kamiz at Marie and Madomai at Max, giving Madomai double strike, and then resolves the Connive trigger, discarding a Shadow Grange Archfiend to give Kamiz some extra power. He also uses the Madness spell to cast it, losing 8 life as part of the cost, and then gains some life back as we all sacrifice our largest creatures. With Madomai having double strike and connecting, Felix gets 2 extra turns, and he gets to make a copy of the Swiftfoot boots with the Stolen Identity trigger. In his second main phase, Felix uses Timna's trigger to draw even more cards, and then uses the token copy of the boots to equip them onto Kamiz. He then plays a Swords to Plowshares on Lulu, and proceeds to his next turn. On Felix's first extra turn, he casts Demonic Tutor, going into his library to grab and cast a Grafted Exoskeleton. He then equips it to Kamiz, and plays Tainted Strike on the Archfiend. Going to combat, he swings Timna at Max, the Archfiend at Marie, and Kamiz at me. Thanks to Wonder giving his team flying, none of us can block, and Felix wins through combat damage and infect damage to close out the game. Game review time. So, unfortunately, my new additions really didn't show up, and not only that, I didn't seem to hit very many mana rocks except for that Mox Opal. I still love the Duke of Dumpsters, but unfortunately I don't think he loved me back this game. Maxim's Osgir deck is very powerful, and he's actually cut the mass land destruction spells that he used to use to win the game, in favor of more synergistic and combo-tastic artifacts. This is why we had to immediately deal with Oswald, because letting Max have a birthing pod for artifacts was just too much power for him. Marie's Lulu deck unfortunately suffered from not having a lot of creatures. It seemed like she was drawing a lot of lands and not much else, unfortunately. Congratulations to Felix, I think this was his first win on the channel, and with Kamiz of all things. I love that Kamiz is an Esper deck that isn't focused heavily around control and focuses more on combat. I think the Connive and Unblockable is fantastic, not to mention the Double Strike, and I think he used it to a really good effect this game. That Madomai play was particularly spicy, and I'm terrified of seeing it again. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.